Okay, so let's take 5 comments in a row.
Mary Reichman, Office of the U.S. Trade Representative. Full disclosure, USTR sits on the board of the MCC. And my comment to your point, Robert, about clearinghouses, I think governments and companies need to work really hard at not stovepiping their commerce, trade agencies' efforts. Your trade and commerce representatives here in Washington rarely know about what, not you, Pfizer, but you, business, rarely know about what the companies are doing on the philanthropy side and the development side. The benefit of MCC with AID and Treasury and USTR on their board, we talk a lot more. We have an interagency process, so the point about not stovepiping, and let's not have this be the last meeting. Suggestion would be go on a road show. Take this kind of session to AmChams either in Central America, in East Africa, in West Africa, but let's take this to the locals and see if you can get the same kind of attention to this on a regular basis. Might not be a clearinghouse, but might help get efforts. And I know MCC is doing their best to get this kind of started in their country. So that would be my suggestion on how to keep information flowing.
And that was Mary Reichman with USTR. Please identify yourself and your organization, and then believe me, we are thinking about the roadshow idea. Go ahead.
My name is Deirdre Lupin. I'm at the Woodrow Wilson Center. In my other life, I'm a consultant on social investment for the extractive industry. I've worked for a number of large extractive companies and even talked to SNV at one time about partnering with them and Shell. That was too long ago, I think, for SNV to be ready for that partnership. In any case, I'd like to pick up on Dirk's point about the potential of the MDGs to drive these public-private partnerships. It seems a no-brainer. You have a worldwide framework, a mobilization, it's going to scale, it's potentially sustainable, it's measured. Why was the private sector not mobilized along with the world governments to support this program? And I'm thinking mainly of the people who headed the initiative, very well-intended group, but very small in New York. I think their advisors from Columbia University and elsewhere were very public sector oriented. That may be one explanation. But if this were to have happened, I'd just like to ask how you think it might have happened, and can we still do it?
Well, I got to tell you that we have some thoughts on that we can talk about offline. But first of all, let me make sure we get to Tim and Michael, and then we'll have to have a last word. I've just realized about the time. My apologies. Tim?
Tim Honey, I'm president of bglobal.net, and I have some good news for everyone here. We have just launched bglobal.net. I describe it as the Facebook for glocalization, not globalization, but glocalization. And it's entirely free for all the users, which include individuals, organizations, businesses, and governments. And our aspirations are 1 million global citizens, 100,000 organizations, and 1,000 global communities all using this site. So I just wanted to mention that piece of news, that this has been launched a week ago. What the comment I wanted to make was coming back to what Steve said about a systems approach here and what's missing. And I think as I look at the panel and then the comment about the ambassador from Ghana not being able to be here, and that was going to be the public sector representative, I just wanted to suggest something different. And that is that I think the public sector representatives in sessions like this need to be the folks coming from the local level, from the cities in developing countries. And the reason for that is that cities are the engines for economic growth. Cities are the building blocks for the neighborhoods and the communities where people live and work. And I think the paradigm shift that we have to make in the development field is getting away from a sectoral approach and looking at it through a community development approach where all the sectors work together at that grassroots level, at the community level, within the strategic framework of the city. And I'd love to hear some comments about that.
Oh, I've got some for you. Okay. Michael Hopkins, please. And then we've got to wrap up. I'm sensitive about the time.
Thank you very much. Michael Hopkins from MHC International Limited, based in London. Fascinating to hear the stories you've been telling this morning, gentlemen, and I think it's incredibly encouraging to see the private sector being involved in development, something I've been advocating myself for over 30 years, which is why I'm looking so old and I'm shaking right now as I speak. But poverty is very complicated, as you know, and what was refreshing, I think, was Dirk's presentation and what he's doing to develop capacity. It strikes me that in any development effort, especially poverty alleviation, you need three aspects. You need the micro level, the meso level, and the macro level. I'm not going to give a big speech on this, don't worry about it. The micro level, the project level, creating latrines. Any project, you need to do that, what I call the CNN level. It needs to be visible. The problem with a lot of Dirk's work is it's not visible. Capacity development is absolutely essential, much more than going out creating 10,000 latrines, because in Ethiopia they need millions. What you really need is capacity development, but you need to influence the top, the macro level. You need to influence macroeconomic policy. And that's a big problem for the private sector. How can the private sector influence macro policy without being seen as
Michael,
more lobbyists?
But I got to push back on something here. This is not something multinational companies are going to do. Do you know, I mean, if you took away every multinational company in the United States, for example, that's 15% of our economy. With almost every single country, what matters is the local business is going to have a much bigger voice, actually, than what a few multinational companies are going to do. One of the things that has to happen here is the internalization of growth within countries. And that, I think, is the key to what happened with China and India and Singapore, is there was an internalization of some of those processes. I think we can help at the margins. I think we can help on technology transfer and things like that. But part of this is it's got to be voluntary. It's got to be from within.
I think right. He's right.
That's a good answer to the question.
and here's
But
why
I just don't think this is something that goes from the outside in.
I think you're right, but you're right. What I think his point was, some of these efforts can be catalytic. What the latrine miracle turned out is the health ministry suddenly figured out, well, my God, they can help us build latrines all over Ethiopia. We didn't know a lot of this by custom. They knew the custom, but they had never thought about how you advance development. So there's now a budget item in the health ministry for building latrines in districts. That was absolutely catalytic. Philanthropic, it's now embedded within the budget of governments. I think efforts like these can be catalytic, and that's what we can help to do. We will never be able to solve problems like, I don't approach reducing poverty. It's too big. It's too big of an elephant. Right. I can do something else. Right. And
how do you eat an elephant?
And
one bite at a time.
And that, I think, is what Michael, what Michael meant.
Okay.